Charlie Hartman at the LiLi Centre with Dr. Brandi Eijsermans for today's Living Talks podcast. Today we are going to talk about our new program, the Mental Health Initiative. Brandi, perhaps you could start by explaining the mission of this initiative.
Absolutely. Well, good morning. The Mental Health Initiative is a public health initiative forged in the intent to increase access and equal affordability to culturally competent and culturally sensitive care and address present gaps in the mental health that contribute to public health risk, and to creatively mitigate this risk, fostering collaboration and integration between foreign practitioners and Swiss practitioners to strengthen the offering and collective knowledge of the region, and to challenge stigma and increase visibility and normalization of public exposure to mental health topics, narratives, and public education.
Wow, that is a pretty ambitious is maybe too strong a word, but a very comprehensive mission, I would say, for such an initiative, and I think a well thought through and much needed initiative.
Well, and a lot of it just came from our experiences here at the center, recognizing these gaps as they emerge, right? So as we all know and experience, you don't notice these gaps until you're in the middle of one of them and you go, wait a second, where is this? And this person needs this support. And do we have that here? I don't even know where to start. And we thought, well, you know, one of the issues, at least among many of the international folks, is noticing that there is a lot of turnover, first of all. And because everyone was keeping their own networks of supports and providers, it was great when there was one source, but those people change, and, you know, the references and referrals that one person might know about, other people might know about. And while there's a wealth of knowledge and insights that the international providers have, it doesn't nearly come close to the comprehensive supports of the Swiss system. And they have many, many resources that, quite frankly, we just don't know are there. And so we really recognize that it's in everyone's interest, in Swiss and international alike, to start to work together and collaborate more. We're living in an ever more globalized world. And so the more that we are working together and collaborating and really running up against the same issues, right? So the same issues that an international practitioner might have, a Swiss provider might have, right? We have more and more people speaking diverse languages, having different cultural approaches to mental health. And that's why we kept the initiative as broad as possible, because there are a lot of paths to thriving, as you guys talk about it. You know, mental health and well-being is something that is not cookie cutter. And especially when you look at it from a culturally sensitive perspective, we want to recognize for a lot of people, it may not be traditional mental health supports that provide them what they need to thrive. And that's okay. That we need to be a little bit more comfortable with the gray of some of these issues and say, hey, if speaking with a spiritual support is something helpful or meaningful, if you want to work with someone who does more of the mind-body work, you know, integrating those aspects, that's fine. If, hey, maybe you want a music therapist, or maybe you want a traditional talk therapist. Maybe you need to take care of your physical well-being and you need someone that can understand that you have some mental health needs tied into your need for exercise or reluctance to get out there and do it. It's really helpful that we have supports and that we are collaborating with one another and recognizing that there are a lot of non-traditional people who are now more and more realizing that under the stress and pressures of our modern world, that they're coming up against mental health issues on a day-to-day basis, whether they're a manager, HR professional, a volunteer at the center, or just someone trying to integrate and find what's going to help them be healthy and well. So yes, very, very ambitious, but also very meaningful venture. And there's quite a few different people who brought this into existence.
That's correct. And that is of note that we are working with Fabia, which is a Swiss organization.
Absolutely.
Who are very much about promoting integration, and they definitely immediately recognize the need. So maybe in layman terms, this is going to be a website where you can go and you can look up. You can look for different kind of practitioner. You can look, I guess you can do a search by language.
Sure. Absolutely. You can search by many things, many aspects, whether it's location, gender, maybe you have a specific kind of therapy or specialty you're looking for. You can search through there. And right now we're just building up the directory. We have a wealth of people that we want to make sure are on the list. And so it's really a meaningful list for both. It's for the public, first and foremost, because we want them to have access to the right services and supports. And then we also want to encourage more collaboration between international providers and local Swiss providers to have meaningful exchanges, to identify gaps that are present in the current system, because we all benefit when we work together, when we collaborate and find ways to address, why is this continuing to be a challenge or an issue for the public? What are some of the hurdles, whether those are actual stigma or practicalities, right? Or just not knowing how the system works. How do we make things more visible so that many of the systems that are well operating and well running are visible so people know, okay, that's how I get access to that support. So it works in both the professional side to build up your network and to know who's there and to put yourself out there. But first and foremost, it's there for the community to be a resource to search on whatever aspect you're looking for.
Right. And I think also what people have to, one of the stigmas around mental health is at what stage am I in a crisis? And again, it can be anything from, I'm just not comfortable right now with my day-to-day life, yes, to much more in-depth problems. And I think that's also what's going to be really useful, is that you will have a whole range of specialists, absolutely, and professionals, who can meet you at your level.
Groups, maybe you just need some social contact and you need to meet with someone who's like a social mentor, who you can kind of maybe make your first Swiss friend, or maybe get connected with that job that you're looking for, or just talk with other people going through the same experience. But as you mentioned, there are various levels. What we want to do is, one of the gaps that we really want to close in on is, we don't want people to only reach out for supports when there's a crisis, because we don't want to encourage people to be suffering that much. And we want to highlight that mental health is a way of life, and thriving is part of just a day-to-day calibration of recognizing what your needs are, recognizing that just makes you human, and that the most mature, responsible thing to do is to reach out and to get the supports, just like you would in any other facet, So we have other things in our healthcare system is, that there's true emergency response, and there's kind of just day-to-day taking care of yourself for your overall long-term health. We want to use the same approach when we talk about mental health. Preventative care is much more effective and oftentimes a lot less painful if we recognize that on the front end. And what I'm really excited about is just how many different types of people we've already come into contact with through the building blocks of getting started. Things from specialists in speech and language pathology and so many different languages, which is well needed in the community. People who work with trauma from various cultural lenses. So from a Chinese medicine approach to a sensory approach to musical expression to a well-rounded kind of therapeutic base in a more traditional sense, and all with kind of their own, take on it, so that what we hope is that people can find someone, regardless of what their needs are, someone that can help. And also maybe let's open up the conversation about mental health being a bigger, broader thing. So yes, there are trained mental health professionals, and they're there to give you support and care at any of those stages. But if that's something that you don't feel quite ready for, or you don't think that you need yet, there are a lot of other things that can get to those direct supports. Sometimes it's just really pragmatic too, right? So we want to make sure that we have some of those supports. Some people just need to have an excuse to come out of their house as they're integrating, this new part of the year. People are getting settled, kids going back to school and getting back into your routines. And that might mean, coming back from a less structured period to a more structured period. And if you don't have that structure, maybe identifying, I do need some of that social interaction, and recognizing that and finding things on the list that might fit that bill. The LiLi Centre being one of them, but many others as well that kind of touch into, what aspect of yourself needs to be supported.
And actually, you mentioned the LiLi Centre. That is why we are supporting this initiative, is because day in, day out, we have new people coming through our doors with a whole host of issues, from very simple ones to more complex ones. And we ourselves weren't fully informed of everything that was out there. And very often, of course, people's mother tongue is neither German nor English, and yet we do know of health practitioners who speak that same mother tongue.
Absolutely.
And so this
providing supports in the emotional language is such an important part. And so I do think it's a natural fit.
Yeah.
It's a natural fit. And you guys really work on trying to provide the connections and supports so that you guys as a community have a resource, a physical center, but also, a community base that provides that connection and support so that people can grow in whatever direction they want, and so they can achieve thriving here, so they can achieve getting to a point where they feel an equilibrium of sorts, that, okay, things are always going to be different, not going to be the same as our countries of origin, but what are the pressure points that you feel living here, and how do we address that in a collaborative, culturally sensitive, and integrated way? Because there are so many different opportunities for branching out, and we all are really trying to find a way to be that healthy local international, right? Whether it's the Swiss becoming, more accustomed to some of the international things, or the internationals becoming more local and understanding and appreciating the rich culture that we have here. It's a really great exchange, and there's already been quite a few spin-off projects that have started just from identifying some of the present gaps and connecting the right people. So it's really encouraging to see that keeping this as broad and kind of fluid as possible has been the catalyst for a lot of conversations to happen, and also for people to take that into action. So recognizing and developing programs, identifying more sustainable resources in the community so that it's not based on one person, or so that we can reach a broader group of people for supports. And again, really identifying, can we give the lowest level of support's needed, instead of waiting until people needs are not getting met and they kind of climb that ladder of risk or of struggle to the point where they're really not functioning. And that's been my big part of the passion project of being involved with the mental health initiative, is, really helping people to get earlier interventions of all sorts, and kind of branching out and getting to meet people in the community. It's been a really eye-opening venture as to how many rich resources we really have, and starting to build relationships. And we thought, well, since building relationships, at least from my from my journey, started here at the center, it was a really natural fit to collaborate with you. The same goes with Fabia. Fabia has been supportive from day one of recognizing that bringing these supports together is necessary. And that's why they will graciously have this linked to their main website, just so that these resources are all the more accessible.
And I think this is another thing, is we're talking, we are kind of three partners, but in a way, the mental health initiative stands on its own. It's a resource. It's out there. It doesn't belong to any one group.
Absolutely.
It's for absolutely everybody, anybody who has a need.
Absolutely. And we want to see how it grows and expands. Just like any community, it's only as strong as, the membership. And so we really encourage anyone who is, supportive of this goal to join or to search and participate. We also have a wonderful discussion area where you can add a discussion if you recognize that there are any gaps, that, hey, this isn't on the list, we really want to have this support group, or really looking for this resource in the community, do you know any more? This is really helpful, because then the network can really go to work to identify, okay, maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't exist, where do we go from here? And start to move it out of the conversation of, well, that's just how it is, and that's unfortunate, to that may be how it is now, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, and maybe even questioning if it is now. Because when we work more collaboratively with each other, there are a lot of things that we've found simple, sustainable, and clean kind of steps to close some of these gaps, or to find the right resources in a really short period of time. It just took a little bit of getting to know people, getting to build relationships, and recognize that it's in all of our interests to support each other a little bit better.
That's really what it's all about, isn't it? It's about supporting each other, and we're in this village together.
Absolutely. And we want everyone to be thriving in this village, right? So making sure that we recognize that accessibility is a really key point. So whether that's financial accessibility or linguistic or cultural accessibility, we want to address that, this mental health supports should be, aligned with human rights, right? That this is something that we need to live and to thrive. It's a pillar in my mind. And so because of that, we really want to advocate that everyone should be able to have equal access to these things. Doesn't mean that all supports will be available in all languages, but that we can find supports that meet the needs of that person, even if it's not necessarily apples to apples in many cases.
Okay, well, thank you so much. For anybody who wants to go, we will put the link at the bottom of this podcast, but what is the website?
Yes, so it's in German and in English, but you can go to the www.mentalhealthinitiative.com and you can go there, do a search for yourself, point out any gaps that you're recognizing, and if you're a practitioner, please consider registering and getting your information out there. We're stronger together.
Thank you so much, Brandi, and thank you for listening. Come and join the LiLi Centre. We are here to help you connect, grow and thrive